Hey everyone, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're joining from. I'm very excited to be doing another episode of my live stream series. And with me here today, I have a very special guest, Ruth Ikegah. Hey Ruth, thank you so much for
I,
joining.
it's so nice to be here and to join the famous gift on her YouTube.
What? Please don't mind me. Yeah,
Like I'm going to be
thank
seen
you.
by a lot of people, so yeah, it's nice.
Thank you, thank you. So we are going to be discussing a very interesting topic today, which is contributing to open source and how to get started. And Ruth here is like an open source advocate. She talks a lot about getting into open source, contributing to open source. So I'm very excited to have her here to answer some questions on from you all if you're interested in open source but you don't know where to start from, or you have like any questions about open source in general, would be happy to answer that. But before we get into all of that, Ruth, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So hi everyone. Like I said, it's nice to be here and chat about something I love talking about every time. So my name is Ruth. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria, and I am an open source advocate, a technical writer as well, and a community manager. I manage a local chapter of an open source global project here in Africa, and I'm also a GitHub star. So yes,
Yeah. Cool. Interesting that you mentioned GitHub Stars because one of the questions I'll ask you later will be on that. And
sure.
moving from that's what you just shared. I want to touch a bit more on how you actually got started in open source, or if we even want to take it one step back, what is open source? And from there, you can now answer what was your first introduction to open source?
Yeah, sure. So if you do not know what open source is, open source usually referred to either software. Usually they use it with of software, like say open source software, open source project, or open source community. So it's like the key things that define open source is that the code base or the software or the community model, whatever it is, it's open and available for everybody to like see it and also not just see but also make enhancements. You're free to make enhancements and alterations. You can make the project as your own. You can contribute to it. You can do a whole lot of things around the project. So that's what it means when you say open source. Something is open source, or this software is open source, or this community is open source. So about how I got started in open source, or even when I first heard the term. So I heard it when I
Mhm.
was in school. So I have a BSc in microbiology. um,
Okay,
yes, when I was in school,
interesting.
I have like really I have friends that were into tech when I was in school. I wasn't really interested in tech. It was just something I knew about. So I think when I was studying with them, my friend was making like piece of gem. She was making like a video call. Like I think it was on Google Meet, and
Mhm.
I was curious, like, what's that? And she was like, it's open source. And then I was like, what's open source? Right. And then she goes to make it very, very simple for me, like not to put in a lot of terms, like I said earlier. She just said it's like volunteering, but in tech. I was like, oh wow, okay, that's interesting. And that was my first knowledge, like that was my first time like I heard what open source is. Then when I came like 2020, I started coding the pandemic here when everybody was like stuck at home.
Yeah,
That was like my
I
most
remember.
so sorry, but yeah, that year was good for
Yeah.
me. But
Okay.
regardless of how it was then, but then I started coding, and I remember that there was something called open source from what my friend had said. So I said, okay, let me try this. I went back to Peace and I asked her, okay, how do I get started here? Like, what do I do? I'm really interested. I started learning tech. Like, I was doing Python then. So I
Mhm.
was learning Python, and she was like, okay, she pointed me to some communities that she was also involved in, and I joined those communities, and that was like where the whole thing sparked for me.
Interesting. I always like to hear people's
Unlimited
backstories. Oh,
gifts.
I am. Am I?
Mm.
Oh,
Oh, you know what
no,
happened? So
you mean? Because I'm like, what? I'm muted.
my laptop, like,
Yeah,
yes,
you
so
muted your laptop.
sorry.
No problem.
Yeah.
I was confused. Okay, I was saying that I like to hear people's backstories because it's always interesting to hear like where they're coming from and how they actually got started in tech or open source in this case. So moving from that, so you heard about open source from your friend, you decided to delve into it, you became interested, and in your own experience, I can also talk about my own journey
Yeah,
into
sure.
open
I'd
source.
also love to know that.
In your own experience, do you think it has helped you in any way? Like, if it has, like, in what way has it helped you become like a better, developer or person working in tech? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I would make this joke, but if you like wake me up like in the middle of the night to ask me what open source is, that's the only thing I would say. Because like open source is like a huge part of my career as a tech person, as a developer, and as a community person, because that's where I kind of like I had the opportunity to start open source, like start contributing to open source from the beginning. So
Yeah.
it's like a huge chunk of my career. So it helped me form a lot of like I think I will even talk more about when you ask about GitHub Star stuff. So it helped me
Mm-hmm.
form a lot of the experience. I had a lot of experience on so many things that I would have struggled with understanding. So because I could work with senior people, I could learn a lot of things. I started speaking as well the same year I started tech. So a whole lot of things I got exposed to a
Yeah.
lot of interesting things. So it forms like a big chunk of my career. So yeah.
That is great because I every time you say in 2020, I remember because I knew you then, right?
Yeah.
I saw when you started and all of that, and then I saw GitHub's. In fact, I've seen all the entire journey
Yeah,
from like the
right.
beginning. So it's like nice to see where you are at this point.
Mhm.
Let me talk briefly about my own experience with open
Sure.
source. For me, it was kind of funny how I delved into it. So I was already coding, right? And
Mhm.
obviously there's GitHub, but GitHub was like where I used to go and store my project. So I saw GitHub like folders where I just push my
Yeah.
project and store. But then at that period, I also saw that there were a lot of other projects, even the ones that I would be using as libraries at the time.
Mhm.
And I had a friend, he was very like, I think I heard about open source from him, Prosper, and
Yeah.
he
Rosa
was
is like
like,
an OG. Like
exactly.
everybody knows
Yeah. So he
Rosa.
was like, he had, I remember back then, I can't remember the number, but he had a lot of open source PHP libraries. And then I was learning PHP. So even though I don't understand the code, I'll just fuck everything. I'll just
Yeah. I
fuck
just put it
everything. I'll just be
because
like,
then you
oh,
can
what is
have
this
all the
guy doing? Oh,
repositories
this is
and
nice,
people will think it's yours. Yeah. You can have like
I
all the
fuck
repositories.
everything, look at the code, try to understand what I'm saying. Laravel, I was learning Laravel at the time. And eventually, at one of the libraries that he had, I saw a typo, and I'm like, I should correct this. And
Yeah.
then I that day, that was the day I learned what pull request is. That was the day I learned what rebasing is. In fact, I didn't know anything because, like I said, I usually just do gits. I just go. I do everything on the UI actually. I just
Mhm.
create my own repo. Okay, maybe I know a few commands and I push it, but that's the only thing I knew. I didn't know how to collaborate on the platform. So yeah, that was my actual introduction to open source by contributing to a friend's project. And then from there, I started doing more. So I got involved in Vue,
Mhm.
started contributing to the Vue community, the documentation for some Vue libraries, Gridsom, and some other things. So that's basically how I started in open source by just being curious and looking out
Not for
at
self.
some
Yeah.
projects. Yeah,
Yeah, and
cool.
I think that's how like a lot of people get started, like just being curious, and not even hearing it from somebody, just seeing it and just saying, okay, what is this thing? And I
Yeah,
think even over the years, like now there's a lot of like awareness, like a lot of people talk about open source, so it's not like there's always something
exactly.
for you. You must always stumble on it somehow.
Yeah. When I
Yeah,
started, I don't know how long Hacktoberfest has been running, but I don't think there was
2013.
October 2013. Okay, maybe I didn't
Yeah.
know about it because I heard about it like a few years after
Hmm.
um I had already started doing open source stuff. But yeah, speaking about Hacktoberfest, maybe we should talk about that later. We could just share it. Oh, it's fine.
It's already started.
I'm excited. Okay.
Yeah.
what is Hacktoberfest? Because I've been seeing a lot of Hacktoberfest stuff on my timeline on Twitter. Like, can you tell me what that is? And yeah.
Sure. So Hacktoberfest is like, so dissecting the word is like hackathon, October, and then a festival, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it happens in October, although there has been like some awareness pre-October because they are getting people to get to know it before October starts. So it's like a month long celebration of like open source. It's from Digital Ocean originally and started in
Mm-hmm.
2013. I did some history like reading on it. But yeah, it
Okay.
started in 2013 and this is like the ninth edition. So it always happens every year, annually in like October. So it's just where open source enthusiasts, developers, tech people come together in the month of October to contribute to open source projects, give back to open source. So that's the spirit behind Hacktoberfest. And then the other part of it is contributing to these projects. You can either win a like get a t-shirt from Hacktober, like they have like a particular design every year, or you
Mm-hmm.
could plant a tree, which it's even more
That's
better.
new.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Okay.
last year, like they
Ah,
planted
okay.
tree parts there, like last year, like plant a tree in your name, even. So,
Mm.
yeah, so you could also choose the option of planting a tree, but it's just to encourage. It's a time where a lot of people get into open source, like because of that whole awareness. There's the
Yeah.
hashtag discover what open source is. So it's primarily to like celebrate open source and bring more people into open source to contribute
Yeah.
to open source. So that's what
Yeah.
Oktoberfest is.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's like a very big, it's actually a very big festival in tech. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that it also running in October makes it one of the biggest like community events that you'd see happening from
Yeah,
like
exactly.
people advocating for open source um contributors to maintainers to like people that are not already contributing to open source, which is the next thing I want to ask you, that are
Mm-hmm.
not familiar with. You'd see like programs that would help you get started and basically just understand the whole field of open source. So the next question that I'll ask then is, um, what is your recommendation for someone new to open source that's just starting out? So maybe someone watching us right now is just like, what are these people talking about?
Yeah.
So what
So
would be your recommendation to them to start?
yeah, usually I'll say first you have to read about it because like we can go on and on with like talking about what open source is, how to get started, but if you do not put that first effort into understanding what it is, it's going to be like pretty hard for you to grow in the space or to even start something. So first you read about it, and then there are like 1,001 articles these days out there talking
Mm-hmm.
about what is open source, how do you get involved. Like there are a lot of guides. There's even opensourceguide.com. You get like a full on guide on how to start to get started. So
Would
start
you?
with reading.
I don't know
Um,
if it would be helpful to share screen, or maybe I'll just look for the links and put
my
it in
tabs are
chat.
so many, so if I
Ah,
share,
okay, okay,
if I
okay,
share my
okay.
screen right now, you scream like my tabs are so many.
Okay, it's fine. I'll just put the links in chat.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can get you the links as well. I'm just so scared that I don't go out of here and then I close my.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. I'll look for the links as you're saying
Yeah,
them.
sure.
Yeah.
Like opensourceguide.com. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
full on guide on how to like different things about like open source, from what it is to how to contribute, how to, make a PR, a pull request. So first read, and then secondly, then you have to find projects, right? I think that's the one of the hard parts. Like how do
Mm-hmm.
I find what I want to contribute to? So I
This is
think
interesting. Sorry.
yeah.
Oh, what am I doing? Victorious is also asking what you're saying. So I just want to highlight that so we answer it together. it says most open source looks sophisticated. How do you
Yeah,
find a project that
very
you
true. Like
contribute
that is
to?
very true. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of projects are like when you see them, like you get scared. Like you look at the code, especially like if you're a beginner. Like that was like my main issue when I started because I just knew how to like I just started Python for like 3 months. I didn't know I didn't know so much. So like how do I make useful like quality impacts to this project? So in going back to finding projects now, usually you can GitHub has made it quite interesting for how you can find projects. They're like what they call issue labels, so with those issue labels, like speaking to Victoria's question, you can use issue labels like good first issue. Those issue labels are labels that maintainers or open source founders they put in their issues that describe that this issue is a very simple thing to do. It's like a very
Mm-hmm.
simple fix. There's also first timers only label that is also like applicable to like okay these are issues that people that are just starting for the first time can do. But in the case where these projects you don't find any project because sometimes some projects they have those things to do but they don't have those labels like right they just
Yeah,
there's nobody sometimes maintaining open source is another thing as well. I
it's a
think that's
lot of
a topic
work.
for another day. But yeah, so if you don't find those things, there are those times where you have to look at the project, read about the project. When you read about the project, there are sometimes when you're reading about, I don't know if you had this thing, if when you're reading the documentation and you notice like there's an error or there's something that is not
Yeah,
correct or
that's how
outdated.
I did my
Exactly.
first year. Yeah.
So yeah, so when you go through the project, there are sometimes you can make suggestions, and it's open source, so you can go and create an issue, right? Just make sure you are properly detailing what or reproducing the error you saw, and that you can fix this. So sometimes you might not find projects that you'd see how you can contribute. It's usually there. I usually experience that a lot, but you have to be the one to make that suggestion, open an issue, tell them, okay, this is what I'm experiencing. Can we fix this? I can fix this for you. All those kind of things. So I hope that that would answer that question. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, going for that to how you can find projects. So when you read about it, you start finding projects on GitHub. You can use the topics. I usually use that a lot. The topic,
Mm-hmm.
like even on my GitHub profile, I have like a topic documentation pinned to my profile so that I can get that list of repositories that documentation
Okay.
related. So search for topics if you're like a Flutter developer or your like specific topics, different topics, you can scan through on GitHub and then you can find repositories that are on that topic. So when you find the repository, the next thing is read like digest what the project is about, because I think a lot of times the issues I've seen with beginners when they want to contribute to a project is that they do not really have sufficient information about what the project is. So it's sometimes hard for them to make suggestions or try to see what they can fix. So
Mm-hmm.
try to read about the project and find ways that you can contribute. While you're reading, you definitely find something because a lot of times open source projects, there's some documentation that is outdated or something that needs to change or something that they need to improve or even be more inclusive with. There are a whole lot of things. So you can now start providing feedback. Okay, this is something I've seen maybe in their website. There are no like alt text. You have noticed that a lot. I like, okay, we can fix this. I can just fix these things for you, right? And then another part is thinking on the long run how you want to help that project. And this is also saying that there are some people that just contribute to open source and they are just drive-by contributors. They just
Mm-hmm.
like in their free time, they just go to one project and contribute to. But if you're someone that wants to, make it a regular thing where you contribute to open source, you can also start joining project meetings, be part of their community, and then long term make impact in that project. So that's a lot of things, but I hope
Yeah. If you want to make it easy for yourself, you can start small, basically.
exactly
Like,
very true.
yeah.
Like starting small, even with one project, because so many times if you want to like hop from one project to another, you not enjoy it. You also like lose focus. You can also like drain yourself while doing hopping from one project to another. So I would even recommend that.
Yeah, in my own experience, how I find that I make contributions is from stuff that I'm using. So, project tools, libraries, platform that I use. I can be using a library and I find a bug, or I encounter a bug. I go just to the Git repo and I create an issue. Maybe I can't even fix it, but just like making taking a note of the issue, and then is
Exactly.
either someone else picks it up, the maintainer fixes it, or I fix it myself, So
Mm-hmm.
it starts from that small problem that you're having, but you want to improve the experience for other people. Or documentation, it's the same thing. Documentation is like one of the biggest places I feel
So
like,
there's a project that doesn't
yeah.
even have documentation.
Because if your project does not even have documentation, why like how will people use it? Or if it's not that great, it's just going to make the developer experience not
Not
um
great, yeah.
great, So there are a lot of areas, and that brings me to the next thing I want to ask you. We've only mentioned code contributions,
Mhm.
documentation contributions, but I don't think that that's the only thing you
Oh,
can
yeah.
contribute in open source. So my question is, what other kinds of open source contribution can someone make apart from code and
Mhm.
documentation?
Yeah, there are like a lot. I would say that first, I'll say that like I think even people that are not even tech related can contribute to open source. I've seen it a lot, right?
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot where like in projects where like even lawyers, even researchers, even like event organizers contribute to open source, right? It's there are a whole lot of things to do. So yeah, like the list is endless if you want to start naming them. Like as far as you have a skill, exactly. You
Yeah.
even just watching, even just like being there or helping people out, is also something like that's good. So I feel for me, every person can contribute to open source, regardless of if you're in tech or not. Um, I think the only issue where people think it's just code is because of the awareness gap that a whole lot, but now I think it's improving because even Hacktoberfest before now, Hacktoberfest did not used to like there was no way to record like non-code contributions, but now they're encouraging non-code contributions. They're encouraging like maintainers to find ways that people that want to contribute without code can also participate in Hacktoberfest. So everybody can contribute. I want to give like a backstory of the different kind of contributions I make to open source personally. So
Okay.
I've been a volunteer in an event, a conference, right? So I was the person that was like hosting the speakers, saying their names, those kind of things. So I've
Mm-hmm.
contributed in that way before. I've also contributed by organizing a meetup, trying to plan with the team to organize a meetup. I've also contributed to facilitating a meeting. There are different contributions you can make. I have also
Mm-hmm.
contributed to mentor. So that's another thing. Like, say for example, you're experiencing one skill and you can give it back by mentoring others to get up to
Yeah.
speed with
Yeah.
certain things. Speaking as well, speaking in open source conferences and events, all those there are different contributions you can make. When you join, going back to the where you can get started or how do you get started in all these things. For some projects, they would list out ways that non-coders can like contribute, but some other projects will not. So it's just for you to see that gap and suggest it. Okay, this feedback. I have social media skills. I can help with creating tweets, because marketing is another thing in open source. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have
Yeah.
a social media skill, or I have like marketing skills. I can help your project to create suites. I can help
Mm-hmm.
your project to create suites on LinkedIn post, all those kind of things, or even like planning, marketing strategy, blog writing. There are a whole lot of things. Like the list is endless. So if the project does not have a way to do that, you just have to like be vocal about it and say I can help do this, and definitely they would definitely say yes. Nobody will say no.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking about marketing, I just thought about something of how open source projects that are quite successful are actual companies, but they are
Mhm.
not just like, even you'd find that some companies, proper companies, have like open source some of their projects, right? And they
Yeah,
have like a full staff working on it. But you
exactly.
see
Like
some
I've seen
projects that,
project like that.
for example, let me see if I can, like, maybe TypeScript is owned by
Mhm.
Microsoft, right? So it's like they have this whole engineering team
So,
working on it, support and
mhm.
all of that. And even community members also contribute to TypeScript. And give another example, maybe Chakra UI, the
Yeah, they're
view
doing a
portion.
lot of marketing.
it's
Like,
by it's by one guy, and eventually it grows because they're like community. So open source projects, when they become successful, like when you have a lot of people using them and
mhm.
contributing to it, it's like a full-on company, meaning that you need engineers, you need
Mhm.
marketing, you need pretty much everything to make it
Everything
successful in a
exactly.
way. So I definitely see what you're saying about, like, there's the list is endless to what you can do.
Yeah.
So
So like it's just
yeah.
for you to like be vocal about it, and because then sometimes why they do not even put it out there is because they do not see people that are filling these roles, and they do not want to like impose it on people. So when
Exactly,
you
because
come
it's
there
free,
and then,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Free. I don't want to start telling you what to do or make it too hard for you. Maybe you now run away from my project. But yeah, like
Yes.
most of the time you have to give that feedback. Yeah, I can do this. I have this skill, and then you can go forward with it.
Yeah. Great. I think that you've done like a very good job leading from like what open source is to like where you
Hmm.
can get started from and all of that. And I know you mentioned a few websites which I left in the comment section, but based on another thing I want to ask you, based on your own experience from like contributing, being in the space, being active in the space, do you really think that the open source space is open to people, especially people that are non-technical or people that are new to the space? And I'm asking you this question because I have like a bias behind why I'm asking you that question. Like, in your own experience, do you think it's an open space? Like, is everybody welcome? Um, because some people, the reason why some people
Yeah,
might not want to contribute is because they feel like, first, they don't think that they are, you know, worthy enough to contribute to like a big
mhm.
project, or would their stuff be accepted or rejected? So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I won't be like, if you had asked me this question like 2 years ago, like it was really hard for me coming in. Like there were a lot of times where I saw this project and there was no way I could help. There was no way I could contribute. So I would say that in 2 years time that I've been here, like I've seen improvements, although like it's still something that a lot of projects are still trying to do, and some are still understanding like the different um things that they could improve on. Like I'm a part of a diversity, equity and inclusion working group in the open source project I contribute to. And these are some of the issues that we talk about, right? Being inclusive to beginners, there, because sometimes when you join a project, you see there are a lot of senior engineers contributing to the project. So most of the time, because they are senior, they've been doing this thing for like 10 years, they do not really, not like it's their fault. Sometimes they do not really know how they can be inclusive to a beginner. So it's sometimes when a new person comes in, they begin to see these gaps of things that they could improve on. So I'd say a lot of projects are trying to, there's this whole awareness around DEI in open source, like being
Yeah.
inclusive to people that, are not, especially newcomers, beginners. And I've seen a lot of effort from projects trying to improve on that, trying to work on that. But most of the time, if I would give advice to people that might be shying away from projects like that, I would say try to take the initiative to make things better. Because I'm someone that believes that when you come into a room and it's things are not done the way it should be, you can make the difference there, so that when other people are coming in, it's just like there's you come into a room and the room is kind of like scattered or things are not in place, and then you leave, the next person comes in, it's going to, people are going to keep living and living. But if you come in and try to make a change, try to change the way things are, people will now start coming in the room, and then there'll be like, the room will hold people, right? So I would say try to, as much as you can, which is sometimes it's hard. It can be frustrating, trust me, because that's something that I started doing, like trying to advocate for people in different communities I joined. It can be hard to speak up most of the time, but just gradually doing it, like taking the initiative to do it, so that if this project does it, this other project says, okay, this is how we welcome beginners. This other
Mm-hmm.
project, and people talk about it in conferences. You go to conferences and people share how their communities are advancing and being inclusive to beginners, and people learn from it and implement it in their own projects. So you can be that person, right? So I think
Yeah.
that's how I see it.
Yeah, interesting point of view. Yeah, because the reason I asked this is I think I've had like a very good experience because projects I contribute to, they're very inclusive, or the community that I'm in, I feel like they're inclusive. So yeah, but I definitely agree that is also a bit daunting for a new person, especially if they don't know exactly the direction to take, which is what I find with a lot
Yeah.
of new contributors in this space. But yeah, thank you, Ruth, for all these tips that you've been sharing.
Sure.
And um, please, you people ask questions. Ruth is here.
Yeah,
Ask her
please
your
ask a question.
questions. Open source code looks quite intimidating.
Yeah,
Yes, it does,
very
because
true. It is even for
a
me.
whole, yeah. I
Yeah.
also think that it's sometimes matured code projects. So they've been
Yeah.
working on it for years. So
Like
even, yeah.
old projects have, like, you see the code, and sometimes they don't even have like comments in the code. Like, okay, what is
Yeah,
happening here?
there's two things that I've seen. Okay, let me give you people my own GitHub whatever hack or experience. So um of course I think I find that with projects, when I try to contribute to it for the first time, I don't know anything because it takes time for you to onboard into a project.
Yeah,
Even if you work
that's
for
our
a company,
experience. Yeah,
it takes,
exactly.
like, literally, if you're joining a new company, they don't expect that you will ship code that first day because you
Mm-hmm.
need to onboard. So it's the same thing with open source projects. You need to onboard. Sometimes they have well documented process on how to contribute. Like they'll have like a contributing.md
Mm-hmm.
file, but maybe not all projects will even have that. Even if they have that, it might still be daunting or intimidating for you. So that's why I always recommend to start small.
Mm-hmm.
One tip that I learned, I don't even know where I learned it from, but it has helped me a lot in my own coding experience, is just how much people have, like, yes, I people say use Google every day, like Google is your best friend, but have you tried GitHub issues? Because for me, if I have a problem, I just go to GitHub issues, the project. So whatever, if it's Vue, if it's
Mm-hmm.
React, I just go to the project and type my error, and you probably see like
Yeah,
50 to
see
60
people.
people have
Yeah,
already
that's a good
asked that question and somebody
response
has replied and giving
and
them. So that,
responded. Yeah.
the best thing I see when I see it, I'm like, oh my God, thank you, is when somebody replies and you see a lot of emojis on the answer. It means it
Mhm.
worked, right? So I just copy
And you go and try yourself.
and just copy and try, and it works. So yeah, that is not me contributing. That is me using someone's work to benefit me. So it's like there are so many tangents to how you can use open source for your
Mhm.
work, to help you in your journey. Even reading code and that is open source, it will help you understand how to write better, you know, code in your own personal work. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways you can actually do this open source
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are
exactly.
healing you, Roots.
Thank you. I'm not covered. Even question from
Yeah,
you.
grandmaster. Yeah.
I just question from you, which is kind of interesting,
Okay, let me.
about stories, about people getting involved and how it went well.
Okay.
Yeah, this question. So I'd love to highlight the work I'm doing at Chaos Africa, the local chapter of the open source project I'm leading. So initially So chaos is like a community where we create metrics for open source communities. Like we care about open source community health. We create like different metrics that open source communities can analyze health in their project. So the outreach, the first cohort of outreach this year, we had a lot of Africans that came to the project, like that applied. I think it was after Oscar Fest, so a lot of people heard about outreach
Yeah, yeah, I
and,
saw.
and then
I saw it.
we had like a lot of outreach applicants from Africa in chaos, and it was like so overwhelming, right? So after that period, some people stayed. So the one of the co-founders was like, okay, let's have an African chapter. We've been getting a lot of Africans contribute to this project, so let's have an African chapter. And I said, okay, I'm interested in trying to lead this effort. And so we started that African chapter, and how it has been going, it has been going really great. We have over, I think, over 120 people in the Slack channel. And then we've been able to do like focus groups, because we Africans, we have this particular, like, people want to contribute with their skill set. So I was like, okay, this is something I've noticed, that people just want to know where they want to start. They don't want to go through so much in reading so many things. So I was like, okay, let's have focus groups, like smaller groups where we can get people and they can contribute. And we have like a design group, we have like a development group, we have a technical writer. So we have different smaller groups, and these smaller groups, people are able to come together and work on a project, right? I think the most active of them all is like the design group, which is really even weird, because then
Interesting.
when
Yeah.
you hear like open source is just about code, right? But the design group is really it goes to say that people definitely want to work on something. They just really need that guidance, they just really need that direction. And it's different for different people, like different cultures. There are some people, specific people, that want direct guidance. There are some people that they don't mind reading a lot about it. So it's just finding these particular ways they want to be addressed, and addressing them that way. So it has been really going great. Like at Chaos Africa, we had a space yesterday about Hacktoberfest, and for a 400 followers account, we had like 300 joined, like
Impressive.
queued into the space. So
Mm.
people want to get help, but most of the time you have to direct them. So I think that's what I'll answer, like, to that story about getting people involved. And it's been going really great, and I see a lot of potentials coming out of that chapter.
Yeah, yeah. I also think that communities play a big, role in
Mhm.
helping more people like Oscar, for example, in
Exactly, like
Africa, the
biggest
stuff that they've
the
done
biggest
and all.
festival,
By the
like
way, Oscar is open source
open
Africa,
source
right?
community Africa. Yes,
Africa. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll get the link to
Cool.
that for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's one
That
of the
is
biggest
great.
open source festivals.
Yeah, we have more questions. Yes, yes, Will. GitHub issues are great. As a DevOps person, find it difficult to see project to contribute to. This is a question from Faith.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation for where to get started? Oh,
Yeah, so I think even searching for like that topics aspect, like there's a topic called DevOps, right? Like, in I think there should be a topic on that GitHub topics DevOps. So if you search for DevOps, you see a lot of repositories that are there. So you now have to start checking, is it this one I want to contribute to? So you can use GitHub topics to find projects
I'm
like
going
that.
to ask you a very silly question. Where is GitHub topics? Let me share my GitHub because okay, I've
Okay.
seen it. I've seen it. I've
You
seen it.
see
Because I'm like, where is GitHub topics? Okay, let me share for people to see
yeah,
in
you can
case.
share your screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you check, like, so let's just do it here.
So let me take this out.
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
is it is
So
if you
you
go to
search, let's
GitHub and then you go to
explore.
explore, and then you check topics. Okay. And
Yeah,
then you
let's just
can
try to
find
search for DevOps and see if we
DevOps.
see anything.
Okay. Where's search here? Is it the same search it works?
Excuse me, I don't
Yeah,
think
this
so.
is general search for GitHub. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's just use that general search and see.
Okay. DevOps. Yeah, it's general, but can you see topics? Yeah, you can. And then that is it.
Yeah, I think they should have a topic search bar somewhere.
Yeah.
So using this now, you can now start finding. The thing is, you have to like really sort them out because some of them might be like very very big projects.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start. You can sort them by even like most of recently updated. So you see the ones that they use a lot, because sometimes it can be, you can see a repo that the maintainer
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
care
outdated.
about the repo
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, this is helpful because honestly, I am on GitHub every day where I found out about topics now. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and you can
Okay.
pin the topics or star them. Like if you click on star there, it will just
Mm-hmm.
restart your profile, I think. And then
Ah, I
that
see.
explore will just randomly be bringing up things that are like DevOps related.
Where is it on my profile?
So if you click on explore, like
Explore here. Sorry. Okay, I see
yes,
it here
that,
now. Okay, okay, okay. Good that I learned something. And that would bring me to my actual next conversation, which is GitHub Stars. But let me stop sharing my screen.
okay.
Hello, Samantha. Oh, we have more questions, so maybe we should answer them first.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
You can answer them now.
Um, any tricks on getting to understand documentation? Any
Yeah, like, and
tricks?
that's a very interesting question because, say for example, like there are some people that, say for example, I'm a Python developer, right? And then this code is on C sharp. I do want to learn C sharp, but I want to be able to contribute to their documentation. So I think the trick is, making collaborating with the engineers or the people that contribute code, because most of the time they can help you explain some certain concept, or um, explain some things that you might not understand. Then another part of this is finding how you want to contribute. So if you want to contribute to a particular section, maybe is it to add images to the documentation, because you've seen that a whole lot of time it's very hard to understand what they're writing. So maybe graphical representation of the docs is better. So understanding how do I want to participate or contribute to this documentation can help you scan or go to the particular area you want to contribute to. Like there's a big documentation, you can't read everything obviously sometimes, but yeah, you should just stick to the parts where you really want to participate in most of the time.
Mhm.
Not like it's a novel that you want to read.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that if you want to, maybe this question, I'm even reading it from two perspectives. Maybe they are asking, how can I understand the documentation, or how can I understand it to contribute to it? To contribute to documentation, I kind of find that it starts from like the small. I'm only saying it starts from the small stuff because here to avoid it being overwhelming for you. If you like to contribute to a doc, maybe make sure it's something you've actually or you are using. So, example could be like maybe a JavaScript library if you work in JavaScript, or a C plus plus library, and you find that you are trying to use that library, but you don't understand because, of course, for you to learn or use any particular framework, library, or any of that, you would refer back to the documentation. But if you find that maybe something is not being explained properly, and in your own perspective as a beginner, because I find that beginners have a better perspective of like explaining concepts too, because of course they understand it better. You
Yeah,
when they
exactly.
explain, beginner's perspective is key. So if you find that you don't understand something, maybe you can make a pull request or something, or suggestion to change, like, hey, this text could be more simplified in this particular way, and make a pull request. If they agree with you and then they merge it, that's already your first, contribution. So there are different ways. Also, I like Ruth, I like what you said about images. That's like key, as well, adding graphics to an already written doc. is
Yeah,
also
I
a
find
good
that
way.
that kind of documentation very, very good because sometimes I can't replicate something that is text on my head. Like I can't really understand it, but when I see like an image of it or even like a short video, it like clicks and I understand it better. So I find that really interesting. And then you not see a lot of open source projects that have image or graphical representation because there's nobody to do it.
Yeah,
So there are a whole lot of ways you can contribute or even participate or better understand the documentation.
yeah, great. Just a side note, Tani, you want to start to your comments are so funny. You want to do Oktoberfest, you are registered in Faith. That's great. To get started, how do you get started, or where should Tani start from?
Okay,
Ruth.
so Tani, if you've registered, not in faith, but in real life, if you registered, you can start finding projects on GitHub, or if it's GitLab you use, you can start finding projects through that topic search. Maybe you want to share your screen again.
Yeah, let me do that.
So we just there's this snippet I used to find projects a lot when I want to randomly contribute.
Okay,
So
what
if
do
you
I
click
do?
on explore, that's search bar. Yeah, explore then
Explore?
search bar. Yes, then the search bar. Then you click on label Hacktoberfest, like label,
Where? I should
like
type it.
type here rather type
Okay.
label, then colon Hacktoberfest. Don't give it space.
Okay. Hack. I know how to spell hack. How do you
So
spell it? Hacktober
so
first.
yeah, then give a space.
Mm-hmm.
Click is issue
Where?
is like no type is issue. Why do I keep saying click?
Because I'm like, click where? Is
Sorry.
issue is like
Yeah,
this,
like with
right?
the colon. Yeah, with the colon, the way you did the label Hacktober first.
Okay. Like this. Yes.
Is then colon then issue.
Okay.
Then
And I should
space again.
search. Okay.
No, no, you're not done.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
type
then
this in the comments.
it's
Okay.
open.
It's open.
Yes, like the same way you yeah. Then give a space again and click not click. Type no
Type.
assignee.
No. Sign.
Yeah, the same way you did the other ones.
Okay, no with like column.
Yes, with colon, yes.
Okay.
Then search.
Okay. Let me copy this. Oh, okay.
Okay. So this would like just randomly find projects for you that are like
This is a good
Hacktoberfest.
one.
Yeah, like you just and you can even add a label JavaScript,
This,
like label JavaScript that you just search only JavaScript
mm,
related. So it just helps you find issues that are like labeled Hacktoberfest, that are open, that are not assigned to anybody, because most of the time you don't want to contribute to something that has been assigned
yeah,
to someone. Yeah. So you
yeah,
can now start searching and maybe if you want to go further, maybe you're a JavaScript developer, I can just add label JavaScript and to only
yeah.
bring up issues that are like JavaScript related for you. So it just help you find projects easily and kind of like contribute to it. I made like a video of
I
this.
saw on Twitter, right? No, this
Yeah.
is really helpful because like if you, for example, just maybe because you write JavaScript, just select only JavaScript,
Yeah.
and then you see this one is a add footer to a web application, and they give you the
Yeah.
design. So it's like
Mhm.
a very good first issue for a
Exactly.
beginner. You see, it has all the tags. So if Tani is interested, she can go and look at this thing and see if she can do it as like
Mhm.
a first contribution. But yeah, they are very beginner friendly ones that I've seen here, So
Mhm. Build an
thank you for
about us
sharing.
page. Like there are a whole lot of
Yeah,
things like and this period with Oktoberfest, a lot of people bring up like
internationalization.
interesting
Like,
issues.
if you know how to speak French, you can go and translate the website to
Mhm.
French. There's, I think I remember one time somebody just went, he's a Spanish developer, he speaks fluent Spanish, and he just went to like some different documentation. Some documentation have like languages, and he just,
Yeah.
what he does is just translates. So translation for Spanish,
And
that's
that's
very
really
good.
helpful, like because then
Yeah.
a lot of people like English is not their first language, so it's very hard for them. Like especially like people that English know, it's very hard for them to like understand things. And if you speak something fluently or speak the language fluently, translating it goes a very long way to like helping people. So yeah, so translation is on that part that is like, and then there are also like there are also apps or there are also like softwares that help you translate. So you must not even really know how to speak it for
Yeah.
you to work on it. So
Yeah. I hope this is very helpful. This is helpful for me, Ruth. Thank you. And I'm sure it's helpful for every other person. Cool. Moving on to the next interesting bit is
yeah.
something I want you to talk about, GitHub Star. Ruth here is a renowned, no, not
Why
renowned,
did you
what's
shout?
it? I want to scroll so that I can show them for you where you are on this page.
Okay.
Ruth is a GitHub star, and I just want her to briefly tell us about you. Yeah, this is you. What
Yeah.
GitHub Stars is, how you got into the program, and even won the Pioneer Award. What is that? Just tell us, like, yes, tell us the cool
Yeah,
stuff.
sure. It's I think it's like my biggest achievement, and it's what like made me really go for open source so much. So that was in 2020. I told you I started open source like 3 months when I started coding, I started contributing
Mhm.
to open source. And then I just got this mail about that I've been nominated, because the nomination process is open for everybody, right? You can just
Yeah.
go there, anybody can go there and nominate people that have been doing a lot in the community and helping others, inspiring people. So I got the mail that I have been nominated. I was like, I don't know what this is. I was even really trouble. Like, I don't know. Okay, I think I had seen some people that said on their on Twitter, then they were GitHub stars, and I googled it. I was like, oh, this is really nice. I didn't really have anything to like. I
You're
didn't.
rapping.
Yeah. So yeah, I saw the nomination, and they were like I should put in my contributions, and I did put in that. And I think it was like 2 weeks later, then I got like the award of being like a GitHub star. And so what a GitHub star is, for people that do not know, is someone that inspires their local community, educates people, and also like um influences people like to be their best and all those kind of things. And Gift is also a GitHub style. She's
What? I'm not. No, I'm joking. I
wow.
am.
Like look at your back. Like
Oh, that's true. Okay.
like if you look at your back,
Yeah.
you're already you're
I
already
think I am here,
they put
Netherlands.
Netherlands, but they don't know you're
Yeah.
in
I'm
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
They put it
Yeah.
Netherlands. But yeah, so
Yeah, this is
I got that
nice.
award, and it
Mm-hmm.
was why it's really important to me, because it was my first year in tech, right? It was
Yeah.
like my first year, and naturally, like you won't think that somebody that is just coming into the space, because when I got the award, the people that I was with, I was like, okay, you
Am I
make a
supposed to be
mistake.
here?
Yeah, like it was because I was like people that I really looked up to, like in the tech space and all. But I think what got me there was how I was really very consistent with what I was doing, because I really had that chat with Anisha, like, okay, why what was the really what was the thing that brought me here. So it was like I was really really very consistent with what I was doing. I was, regardless of, I didn't know so much, I was still helping people get started with open source. I was still trying to show up, even with not knowing so much, right? And that's like a really good thing to do, like helping other people. I was advocating for beginners, because I had like, going back to that explanation I made, like when I got into the room, trying to change things, trying to change how things are. And I'm someone that when I see something like it's not really, other people are not benefiting from this, why are these people being neglected, right? We should bring in this set of people. So I was always doing that in communities that I found myself in. So yeah, I got that award. And then last year, I also, so we do in the GitHub Stars program, we have like a particular conference, it's called the Nova Conference, which is coming up this year again, and I'm so excited for it. Yeah. So we do. Oh my god. So, do you know what just happened?
What
Can,
happened? They
can you
took your
guess it?
lights.
Yes.
Okay, we are almost at the end of it, so
Yes.
it's
I knew this was going
okay.
to happen. I knew. So just give me a minute. I'm trying
Okay,
to,
no problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wait, you're mute. You're mute.
can
Yeah,
you hear me
yeah,
now?
yeah.
Yeah, I knew this was going to happen, so I had it back up.
Okay, cool. This is so like it happens. It used to happen to me before, and I'm like, yeah, you
Yeah,
need to have
I have like a
something.
power pack. I have like a power pack.
Okay.
So I plugged my lights to the power pack. So I was like, I knew they were going to do this. Ugh. Yes.
This is
So yeah,
Nigeria showing you Nigeria from the screen. But yeah,
yeah. So
if
yeah, so
yeah.
this year, last year rather, so we have that conference for GitHub Stars, and during that conference there are awards like for stars that have been doing a lot, and I got the award as a pioneer star. And what a pioneer, and it goes back to everything I've been saying, like changing
Mm-hmm.
things, being the first person to kind of like do things. So I have been throughout last year, I was, I tried to participate in the GitHub Africa virtual meetup, which we, bring in speakers from like different parts of Africa to talk. We do it every month. So I was hosting that, after a month, I got, the GitHub Stars Award. So yeah, I was
Mm,
that Pioneer Award, and it was really very nice. I was so happy. And yeah, so
yeah.
that's what it's about.
Cool. I'm very happy to have you, Ruth. Like this was a very nice session. Like I'm clapping for you. Yeah. And for someone you say that you're a celebrity.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm not eating now,
Yeah.
babe. I'm just
Yeah, this was a very insightful session learning about open source, contributing to open source and all of that. And I'm sure people also learned a lot from it. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And for folks that are joining or that joined in the middle of the conversation, but you want to like go back to the beginning, immediately I end the stream, you can go back and watch from the beginning.
Mhm.
So that is also nice. You can rewatch this anytime as much as you want. And yeah, thank you so much, Ruth. Ruth, where
Thank
can
you.
people find you
I
if
had
they
to
want to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Ikegah Ruth, at
Mhm.
Ikegah Ruth on Twitter, I'm more active there. Then on GitHub, I don't GitHub does not allow people to DM, like they need to implement that feature, right? Where
It will be disastrous.
people
Disastrous.
can people can
you,
abuse it for real. So
yeah.
I'm also Ruth Ikegah on LinkedIn if you use LinkedIn. And yeah, you can check out on Twitter and definitely ask any question you want about open source. I'm so passionate about helping people get started. So if you have not started, I'll definitely make time to get you started if you're
Mm,
interested in it. So yeah.
cool. Thank you so much. So if you have any questions that maybe you didn't ask during this, feel free to reach out to Ruth. And yeah, that brings us to the end. Let me start with documentation first and grow from there. I'm currently learning Svelte on some of the libraries. Okay, that's good. That's you see,
That's
that's good. You can start from that. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to wrap up. So thank you very much. I'll see you all in the next stream and have a nice day. Thank
yeah. Bye
you.
everyone.
Bye.